The great crystal chamber of Nexus Prime sparkled with light from a dozen different suns. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their floating seats, each designed for their species' unique needs. The air hummed with translation devices, working overtime to convert thoughts and words between vastly different minds. Dae-Ho Kim adjusted his simple black suit and looked around the chamber. After 50 years of serving as humanity's ambassador, he still felt amazed by the diversity before him. The tall, blue-skinned Etherians with their proud bearing, the plant-like botanists swaying gently in their mobile gardens, the crystalline, beings that seemed to sing rather than speak. Today was the day humanity had waited for. Today, the Galactic Council would vote on whether humans deserved full membership. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Dae-Ho Kim of Earth," announced Speaker Thymos, a being that looked like a living statue made of polished stone. Dae-Ho stood slowly. At 73, his hair was silver, but his voice remained strong. "Honored. Delegates, I come before you today not to beg, but to present the facts of human achievement." He activated his holographic display. Images of human hospitals filled the chamber. In the past decade, human doctors have eliminated 3 major diseases that plagued Council worlds. Dr. Sora Park's team developed the cure for Zarathi bone rot. Our medical schools now train doctors from 40 different species. The display changed to show massive construction projects. Human engineers led the design of the new trade stations in the Outer Rim. Engineer Hae-Jin Song's innovations reduced construction time by 60%. The Dyson Ring project exists because of human problem-solving. More images flowed past. Diplomatic meetings, peace treaties, human peacekeepers standing between warring factions. Our soldiers have maintained peace in the Helix sector for 20 years. Captain Min-Soo Cho's tactical doctrine is now taught in Council military academies. Dae-Ho paused, letting the images speak. "We have proven ourselves as healers, builders, and peacekeepers. We ask only for the recognition that our actions have already earned." Veltan of the Etherian Empire rose from his seat like a blue tower. His species had ruled star systems when humans still lived in caves. "Pretty words and pictures," he said, his voice carrying the authority of millennia. "But what do they truly show us? A species barely out of its childhood trying to impress its elders." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Veltan continued, "Humans fight among themselves even now. Their homeworld bears scars from countless wars. They are aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. Grant them full membership, and we invite chaos into our ordered society." Mordeth of the crystalline hegemony chimed in with sounds like breaking glass. The translator made his words clear. "The Etherian speaks truth. Humans change too quickly. They adapt too fast. This makes them unstable partners. Their emotions drive them to hasty decisions." Other voices joined the criticism. The Reptilian Trade Union worried about human business practices. The Aquatic Federation feared human expansion. One by one, species that had benefited from human help now spoke against them. Only Quen Lar of the Botanist Collective offered support. "Humans bring new ideas," the plant being said in a voice like rustling leaves. "Growth requires change. Perhaps we fear their potential too much, but it was not enough." Dae-Ho watched the debate with growing sadness. He had expected some opposition, but not this level of hostility. These beings had worked alongside humans for decades. They had seen human kindness, human sacrifice, human innovation. Yet they spoke as if humans were still the primitive warriors of ancient Earth. "The question before us is simple," Veltan declared. "Do we admit a species that might destabilize our carefully maintained peace? A species that solves problems with violence before diplomacy? A species that puts individual desires above collective harmony?" "Humans are not ready," agreed Zexara, of the insectoid swarms. "Perhaps in another century, when they have learned proper restraint." The voting began. Each species cast their decision into the central crystal, which would tally the results. Daiho knew the outcome before the crystal began to glow red. "The motion to grant full membership to humanity is denied," Speaker Thymos announced. "Furthermore, by majority vote, humanity's provisional status is hereby revoked, effective immediately." The chamber fell silent. Everyone waited for the human response. They expected anger. They expected threats. They expected the emotional outburst that would prove their point about human instability. Instead, Daiho simply nodded. He gathered his materials with steady hands. He deactivated his holographic display. He straightened his jacket. "We understand," he said quietly. "Humanity will respect the Council's decision." He walked toward the exit with the same measured pace he had used to enter. No protests, no arguments, no dramatic speeches about injustice. At the chamber door, he paused and turned back. "Thank you for 50 years of cooperation. It has been an honor to serve alongside such distinguished beings." Then he left. The silence stretched on. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Quenlar's leaves drooped with what might have been sadness. "Well," Veltan said finally, though he sounded less triumphant than expected, "that was easier than anticipated." Mordeth's crystal body chimed uncertainly. "I expected more resistance. Humans usually fight when challenged." "Perhaps they finally understand their place," suggested Thymos, but even the speaker seemed puzzled by the lack of drama. Outside the chamber, Daiho walked through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime. Other humans working on the station stopped to look at him. Word traveled fast in the diplomatic community. "Sir?" asked Jinwoo Nam, a young trade negotiator. "What do we do now?" Daiho smiled sadly. "We go home, Jinwoo. We pack our things, we thank our hosts, and we go home. But the medical programs, the construction projects, the peacekeeping missions will continue without us," Daiho said. "The Council has made its choice. We respect that choice." As news of the vote spread, humans across Council space began receiving the same message. "Report to your supervisors. Complete your current assignments. Prepare for departure." No one protested. No one argued. No one made demands or threats. Humanity simply began to leave. Back in the crystal chamber, the Council delegates were already moving on to other business. Trade agreements, border disputes, resource allocation, the usual matters of galactic governance. None of them noticed the subtle change in the chamber's atmosphere. The translation devices seemed less efficient. The environmental controls fluctuated. Slightly. Small things, unimportant things, things that human technicians had quietly maintained for 50 years. The first cracks in the foundation were already forming, though no one would notice them for months to come. Veltan settled back in, his floating chair satisfied with the day's work. The galaxy was safe from human unpredictability. Order would be maintained. He had no idea that by removing humanity from the equation, the Council had just made their first truly catastrophic mistake. The quiet exit had begun. 3 months had passed since the vote. Dr. Sora Park stood in her laboratory on Zarathi Prime, watching her team pack the last of their equipment. 20 years of research, countless breakthroughs, and dozens of saved species were being carefully placed into shipping containers. "Are you sure about this, Doctor?" asked her assistant, Tae-Jin Lee. He was young, barely 30, and had spent his entire career working alongside alien colleagues. "The Zarathi really need us. The bone rot cure was just the beginning." Sora smiled sadly as she placed a delicate, genetic scanner into its protective case. "The Council was very clear, Tae-Jin. Humans are not welcome as full partners. We cannot stay where we are not wanted." Chief Medical Officer Werden of the Zarathi entered the lab, his 6 arms moving, in the gesture that meant deep concern. "Dr. Park, surely there is some way to work this out. Your research here is vital." My people still face diseases that only you understand. I am sorry, my friend, Sora replied. We have trained your staff as best we could. Our research notes are all yours to keep, but humanity must respect the Council's decision. Worden's primary arms drooped. But the pandemic protocols you developed, the cross-species treatment methods, we barely understand half of what you accomplished. Sora placed a gentle hand on one of his secondary arms. You will learn. The Zarathi are brilliant healers. You just think differently than we do. In time, you will find your own solutions. But even as she spoke the comforting words, Sora knew the truth. Human medicine worked because humans saw patterns that others missed. They made connections between seemingly unrelated symptoms. They took risks that careful, methodical alien doctors would never consider. In the military sector of Council space, similar scenes played out. Commander Yulki Jung stood on the bridge of the peacekeeping station above Helix 4, the most contested world in the sector. His tactical displays showed the positions of 3 different factions, all held in careful balance by human negotiation and strategic placement. Sir, are you really ordering a complete withdrawal? Asked Captain Minsu Cho, his most trusted officer. Minsu had been born on this station. He knew every corridor, every control room, every diplomatic back channel that kept the peace. Orders. From Earth, Yulki said simply. All human military personnel are to return home immediately. General Morketh of the Etherian military appeared on the main screen. The tall, blue-skinned warrior looked uncomfortable. Commander Jang, I must protest this withdrawal. The Helix sector requires your expertise. Your people understand the local conflicts better than anyone. With respect, General, the Council decided that human military thinking is too aggressive for civilized space, Yulki replied. We are merely following their guidance. But without your tactical units, without Captain Cho's patrol strategies, this sector could explode into open warfare within weeks, Yulki shrugged. Then perhaps the Council will find a more civilized solution. We certainly hope so. On construction sites across the galaxy, human engineers were packing up as well. Hyejin Song supervised the dismantling of her command center. On the Dyson Ring project, the massive structure, designed to harness the power of an entire star, stretched away into space like a metal rainbow. This is madness, Chief Engineer Veltor transmitted from the main construction platform. His species communicated through electrical pulses, making his frustration come across as sharp static. The ring is only 40% complete. Without your innovations, without your problem-solving methods, this project will take decades longer. Hyejin carefully shut down her computer systems. I am sorry, Veltor. We have uploaded all our technical data to the main computers. The Council will surely find other solutions. Your adaptive engineering protocols cannot be replicated by simple data transfer. The way humans improvise, the way you solve unexpected problems, we cannot program that into our systems. Then perhaps the ring will teach you new ways to think, Hyejin said. Challenges often bring out the best in us. But she knew Veltor was right. Human engineering worked because humans were willing to try things that should not work. They bent rules, ignored regulations, and found solutions that violated everything aliens knew about proper procedure. It was chaotic and unpredictable and absolutely essential for projects of this magnitude. In the trade centers, Ambassador Jinwoo Nam was closing down humanity's commercial operations. His office overlooked the busiest spaceport in Council space, where ships from hundreds of worlds came to exchange goods and information. The logistics networks will collapse, warned Trade Administrator Jin Ra of the Galactic Commerce Guild. Her crystalline body chimed with distress. Human shipping routes. Connect 47 different systems. Your people found ways to make impossible connections profitable. Jin Woo sealed another datapad filled with trade agreements. The routes will remain open. We are transferring all contracts to other species as requested. But the efficiency, the innovation, the way humans find profit in trades that seem impossible, we do not understand how you do it. You will learn, Jinwoo said. All species are capable of great things when necessity demands it. Yet he knew that human trade worked because humans were willing to take risks that conservative alien merchants avoided. They saw opportunities where others saw only problems. They built trust through personal relationships rather than rigid contracts. Far from council space on the growing human colony of New Terra, different conversations were taking place. Dr. Eunji Baek walked through laboratories filled with the most brilliant human minds from across the galaxy. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and diplomats who had spent decades working with alien species were now focused solely on human advancement. The quantum resonance data from the crystalline hegemony suggests possibilities they never explored, reported Dr. Chang-Ho Lee, a physicist who had spent 20 years studying alien technology. Without their restrictions on experimentation, we could achieve breakthrough propulsion within months. Admiral Junho Seo reviewed reports from human fleets throughout the galaxy. Our people are returning with detailed intelligence on Council. Military capabilities. More importantly, they are coming back with motivation. Motivation? Yunji asked. The Council rejected us, Junho said simply. But our people out there, they see the truth. They see how much the aliens depend on us. They see how much we have been holding ourselves back to fit in with their limitations. Diplomat Kyungmin Park had even more interesting news. 12 non-council species have approached us for formal relations. They are impressed by our professional withdrawal. They see strength in our restraint. Yunji nodded thoughtfully. So, while the council pushes us away, others welcome us. More than welcome us, Kyungmin smiled. They want to learn from us. They want to build something better than the council's rigid hierarchy. Back in council space, the first problems were beginning to appear. Minor issues, easily overlooked. A communication delay here, a supply shortage there, a small diplomatic misunderstanding that human mediators would have solved in minutes. On Nexus Prime, Speaker Thymos reviewed the monthly reports with growing unease. These inefficiencies, they are unusual. Temporary adjustments, Velton assured him. Systems take time to adapt. We operated without humans for millions of years. We will do so again. But in the medical bays, Zarathi doctors struggled with treatment protocols they barely understood. In the military sectors, Etherian generals found their forces inadequate against tactics they had never encountered. On construction sites, alien engineers stared at half-finished projects that seemed to require human-style improvisation to complete. Humanity's exodus was quiet and professional. No burned bridges, no angry departures, no dramatic protests. They simply packed their expertise and left, taking with them solutions to problems the Council had never realized they had. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between dependence and partnership, and humanity was about to discover what they could accomplish when freed from the need to prove themselves worthy of acceptance. 6 months after humanity's departure, the first real crisis hit the Zarathi homeworld. It started with a simple case of scale flu in the northern provinces, a disease that had been easily controlled for decades. But this time, the virus had mutated. Chief Medical Officer Werden stood in his command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the spread of the outbreak. His 6 arms moved frantically between different control panels as reports came in from across the planet. The standard treatments are not working, reported Dr. Nelzon from the quarantine zone. The virus has changed. It attacks the nervous system now, not just the respiratory organs. Werden's primary arms drooped with exhaustion. What about the human protocols? Dr. Park's adaptive treatment methods? We have tried to follow them, but Nelzon's image flickered with static. Chief, we do not think like humans. The protocols require intuitive leaps that our minds cannot make. Dr. Park would see patterns in the patient data that we simply miss. The truth was becoming painfully clear. Zarathi medicine was methodical, careful, and precise. Human medicine was intuitive, adaptive, and creative. For 20 years, human doctors had been making the impossible connections that saved lives, while Zarathi doctors had thought they were simply following better procedures. "Contact the Council Medical Board," Verden ordered. "Request emergency. Consultation with human specialists." But when the request reached Nexus Prime, it was quietly denied. Humans were no longer part of Council space. The Zarathi would have to solve their own problems. Meanwhile, in the Helix sector, General Morketh faced a different but equally serious crisis. Pirate fleets had emerged from the asteroid fields, attacking trade convoys with tactics that seemed impossible to counter. "They strike without warning, destroy what they cannot steal, then vanish before our response forces arrive," reported Captain Zulmar from the patrol ship Etherian Pride. "Our traditional formation patterns cannot protect the shipping lanes." Morketh studied the tactical displays with growing frustration. For 20 years, Captain Minsu Cho's human peacekeepers had maintained perfect order in this sector. They had used unconventional patrol patterns, unexpected response times, and psychological warfare that kept pirates too confused to organize. "What about the human tactical database?" Morketh asked his intelligence officer. "We have all their data, General, but implementing it proves difficult. Human tactics rely on split-second improvisation and intuitive responses to changing conditions. Our commanders prefer proven strategies and careful planning. The Etherian military had spent millennia perfecting their approach to warfare. They were disciplined, organized, and predictable. Human military thinking was chaotic, adaptive, and effective in ways that made no logical sense." "Sir," reported another officer, 3 more trade convoys were hit today. The merchants are requesting human military protection." "Humans are no longer available," Morketh said through gritted teeth. "We must find our own solutions." But finding those solutions was proving harder than anyone had expected. On the massive Dyson Ring construction site, Chief Engineer Veltor was learning the same painful lesson. The ring was supposed to be the Council's greatest achievement, a structure that would harness the power of an entire star. But progress had slowed to a crawl. "Section 47 is still not responding to standard assembly protocols," reported his assistant, Morkles. "The structural harmonics are wrong. Without Engineer Song's adaptive algorithms, we cannot make the pieces fit properly." Veltor's electrical field flickered with irritation. His species had built space stations for thousands of years, but this project was different. It required constant innovation, endless problem-solving, and the kind of creative thinking that humans made look easy. "What about the backup plans?" he asked. "All the backup plans assume human-style improvisation," Morkles replied. "Engineer, Song's team did not just follow procedures. They created new procedures every day. They solved problems we did not even know we had. The Dyson Ring project was falling months behind schedule. Worse, the delays were causing cost overruns that were straining the entire council budget." In the economic sector, Trade Administrator Jin Ra was discovering just how dependent the galaxy had become on human commerce. The shipping routes that Jin Wu Nam had created were supposed to be simple trade connections. But without human management, they were falling apart. "The profit margins have collapsed on 40% of the major trade routes," her assistant reported. "Without human traders finding creative solutions, the routes are barely profitable." Jinra's crystalline body dimmed with worry. "What about the replacement traders from other species?" "They follow safe, traditional methods. They make small, guaranteed profits instead of the innovative deals that humans created. The total trade volume has dropped by 30%. The humans had not just been moving goods from one place to another. They had been creating wealth, finding opportunities that others missed, and building economic connections that seemed impossible on paper but worked perfectly in practice." Far from these struggles, humanity was experiencing an unprecedented renaissance. On New Terra, Dr. Yunji Bayek walked through research facilities that hummed with activity and innovation. The quantum drive tests exceeded all expectations, reported Dr. Bo-Ram Shin, holding a data pad that glowed with success indicators. Without council restrictions on experimental technology, we achieved 30% faster than light travel. Impressive, Yunji said. What about the communication breakthroughs? Dr. Chang-Ho Lee smiled broadly. Instantaneous galaxy-wide communication based on quantum entanglement principles, the crystalline hegemony discovered but never properly explored. We have been thinking too small for decades. Admiral Junho Seo had equally good news about military developments. Our new ship designs incorporate innovations from 6 different alien technologies. Without the need to follow council military restrictions, our engineers are creating vessels that surpass anything in the galaxy. But perhaps the most important development was happening in the diplomatic sector. Kyungmin Park stood in a conference room filled with representatives from species that had never been part of the council. The Verdant Republic is ready to sign a formal alliance, she reported, as are the Crystal Miners Guild and the Independent Systems Confederation. They all want the same thing, a partnership based on mutual respect rather than rigid hierarchy. How many species have expressed interest? Yunji asked. 17 so far, with more inquiries every week. They have been watching how we handled our dismissal from the council. They are impressed by our professionalism and our restraint. Prime Minister Su Jin Kang reviewed all these reports with quiet satisfaction. So while the council pushes us away, we are building something better. Much better, agreed Admiral Mi-young Choi, the head of the new Human Defense Force. Our alliance partners respect our abilities without fearing our potential. They want to grow with us, not limit us. Back in council space, the problems were becoming harder to ignore. Speaker Thymos called an emergency meeting to discuss the growing list of crises. The Zarathi outbreak has spread to 3 systems, he announced to the assembled delegates. The Helix sector is experiencing its worst security crisis in decades. The Dyson Ring project is facing possible cancellation due to delays and cost overruns. Veltan shifted uncomfortably in his floating chair. These are temporary adjustments. Complex systems take time to stabilize after changes. Are they temporary? Asked Quen Lar of the Botanist Collective. Or are we seeing the true cost of humanity's departure? Mordeth's crystalline form chimed with uncertainty. Perhaps we should consider limited consultation agreements. Humans could advise on specific problems without returning to council space. Absolutely not, Veltan declared. We voted to exclude humans for good reasons. We cannot appear weak by asking for their help now. But privately, even Veltan was beginning to worry. Intelligence reports from the Outer Rim spoke of a growing human alliance, of technological breakthroughs that the Council was not achieving, of economic prosperity that made Council worlds look stagnant by comparison. Quen Lar's leaves rustled, with what might have been sadness. Perhaps the question is not whether we made the right decision, but whether we made it for the right reasons. The cracks in the foundation were spreading, and for the first time since the vote, some council members were beginning to wonder if their fear of human potential had blinded them to human necessity. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was no longer asking for permission to be part of that change. 1 year had passed since humanity's quiet departure, and the Galactic Council chamber felt different. The crystal walls still sparkled with starlight, but the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken concerns. Speaker Thymos called the emergency session to order with less confidence than usual. We face multiple system-wide crises, he announced, his stone-like features showing cracks of worry. The situation requires immediate attention. The statistics were devastating. The Zarathi plague had jumped species barriers and now infected 7 different worlds. The Helix sector was in open rebellion, with 3 planets declaring independence from Council authority. The Dyson Ring project had been suspended indefinitely, wasting billions of credits. Economic recession was spreading. through half the Council territories. How did we reach this point? Asked Delegate Morthane of the Aquatic Federation. These problems seemed manageable just months ago. Intelligence Chief Nexara, a spider-like being with 12 gleaming eyes, activated her holographic displays. The pattern is clear when examined closely. Every major crisis connects to an area where humans previously provided critical support. The chamber fell silent as the data unfolded. Medical response teams that had relied on human intuition were failing against adaptive diseases. Military units were losing battles they should have won easily. Engineering projects were collapsing without human innovation. Trade networks were fragmenting without human risk-taking. But surely these are coincidences, protested Veltan, though his usual confidence seemed shaken. We operated successfully for millions of years before humans arrived. Did we? Nexara challenged. Or did we simply avoid the kinds of challenges that human presence allowed us to tackle? Her displays showed comparison data. Before human involvement, Council space had been stable but stagnant. Growth was slow, innovation was rare, and problems were often ignored rather than solved. Humans had not just joined the galactic community, they had transformed it. Human doctors did not just treat diseases, Nexara explained. They prevented them by seeing patterns we missed. Human engineers did not just build structures, they solved problems we thought were impossible. Human traders did not just move goods, they created wealth through connections we never imagined. Delegate Quen Lar's leaves drooped, with what could only be called grief. We thought they were learning from us. Instead, we were learning from them. The intelligence report continued with even more disturbing information. Humanity had not retreated into isolation as expected. Instead, they were thriving. Human space now encompasses 42 star systems, Nexara reported. Their technology has advanced at an unprecedented rate. They have achieved faster than light communication, improved their ships beyond our current capabilities, and formed alliances with 18 non-council species. Admiral Junho Seo's fleet had grown to rival the combined naval forces of 3 council species. Dr. Boram Shin's research facilities were producing breakthrough technologies that made council science look primitive. Most troubling of all, diplomat Kyungmin Park had created a network of alliances that was actively competing with council influence in the galaxy. They are building an alternative to our entire system, Nexara concluded. And they are doing it successfully. Veltan's blue skin had paled to an almost white shade. This cannot be accurate. Humans are too chaotic, too unpredictable to create lasting institutions. The data does not lie, Nexara replied. Human chaos is actually adaptive flexibility. Their unpredictability is creative problem-solving. What we saw as weaknesses were actually their greatest strengths. Speaker Thymos studied the displays with growing horror. Every graph showed the same trend, council space declining while human space flourished. It was not just growth, it was explosive expansion built on innovation and cooperation. What about our former allies? Asked Delegate Kernus of the insectoid swarms. Surely they remain loyal to the council? Nexara's response was even more unsettling. 3 species have formally requested permission to join the human alliance. The Verdant Republic has ended their council trade agreements. The Crystal Miners. Guild now sells exclusively to human space. Even some of our own member species are sending unofficial delegations to negotiate with humanity. The silence in the chamber stretched on. Decades of careful galactic politics were unraveling, and it was all connected to their decision to exclude humanity. There is more, Nexara continued. Human President Jae-hyun-oh has announced plans for something called the Federation of Free Worlds. It is designed as a completely alternative galactic government based on voluntary cooperation rather than hierarchical control. Mordeth's crystalline form chimed with distress. They are not just leaving us. They are replacing us. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Humanity was not seeking revenge or conquest. They were simply demonstrating that a better way was possible. Their quiet departure had been the first step in building something that made the Council look obsolete. "How could we have been so wrong?" asked Delegate Silvera of the Peaceful Collective. Quenlar spoke with the wisdom of a species that understood growth and change. "We judged them by their past instead of their potential. We feared their differences instead of learning from them. We demanded they prove their worth, then rejected the proof when they presented it." Veltan finally spoke, his voice lacking its usual authority. "What do you recommend we do?" Nexara displayed one final set of data. Economic projections show Council Space will lose 30% of its GDP within 2 years. Military analysis indicates we cannot maintain security in 17 contested systems without human tactical expertise. Scientific advancement has slowed to pre-human levels. The choice was becoming clear: adapt or become irrelevant. "We could approach them diplomatically," suggested Thymos. "Perhaps offer limited readmission under special terms." "With what authority?" Quenlar asked sadly. "They no longer need our approval. They no longer want our membership. We have nothing to offer that they cannot build themselves." In human space, a very different conversation was taking place. President Jae-hyun-oh stood in the government complex on New Terra, surrounded by the leaders who had turned humanity's rejection into galactic transformation. "Council intelligence gathering has increased significantly," reported Security Chief Woo Jin Park. "They are finally realizing what they lost." "Let them realize," said Prime Minister Soo Jin Kang. "Understanding is the first step toward wisdom." Admiral D. Mi-young Choi had more practical concerns. "Should we expect diplomatic contact attempts?" "Almost certainly," replied Foreign Minister Sang-ho Yoon. "But we must consider our response carefully. We are no longer the same species that sought their approval." President Jae-hyun nodded thoughtfully. "1 year ago, we wanted to join their club. Today, we have built something better. We are no longer asking for acceptance. We are offering partnership to those who deserve it." Dr. Yoonji Baek entered the room with the latest research reports. "The quantum communication network is operational across all Alliance systems. Our members can coordinate instantly across thousands of light years. The Council still relies on relay stations that take weeks to transmit messages." "Transportation?" asked the President. "Our new ships can travel twice as fast as Council vessels," reported Fleet Admiral In-soo Kim. "Travel time between Alliance worlds has been cut in half." Economic Minister Dong-soo Kim had equally impressive numbers. "Alliance trade volume has grown 400% this year. Our partners are prospering in ways they never achieved under Council economic restrictions." President Jae-hyun looked out the window at the bustling spaceport where ships from dozens of species came and went freely. "A year ago, the Council told us we were not worthy of membership. Today they are discovering that we were the ones holding their entire system together." "What happens when they come asking for help?" asked Prime Minister Soo Jin. "We listen," the President replied. "We are not the Council. We do not reject potential partners out of fear or pride. But we also do not accept relationships based on desperation or need." Back in Council space, the delegates were facing the hardest truth of all. Humanity had not just left their organization, they had exposed its fundamental weaknesses. The Council's rigid hierarchy, conservative thinking, and fear of change had been hidden behind human innovation for decades. Now, stripped of human support, they were forced to confront their own limitations. "Perhaps," said Quenlar quietly, "the question is not how to bring humans back, but how to become worthy of their partnership." It was a lesson that would prove even harder to learn than they feared. Speaker Thymos stood alone in his private chamber, staring at reports that painted an increasingly desperate picture. The Council was not just struggling, it was failing. In the 2 weeks since the emergency session, 3 more crises had erupted. across their territory. A soft chime announced a visitor. Quenlar entered, the plant being's normally vibrant leaves now drooping with exhaustion. "The Botanical Collective has voted," Quenlar announced without ceremony. "We are withdrawing from active council participation until this crisis is resolved." Thymos felt something crack inside his stone-like chest. "You cannot abandon the council now. We need unity more than ever." "Unity? With what?" Quenlar asked sadly. "Half our member worlds are in chaos. Our military cannot maintain order. Our economy is collapsing. Our greatest scientific project lies abandoned. What exactly are we being unified with?" The harsh truth hung in the air between them. The Galactic Council was becoming a shell of its former self, held together by tradition and pride rather than effectiveness. "What do you suggest?" Thymos asked quietly. "Contact humanity," Quenlar replied. "Not as the Council making demands, but as individuals seeking help." Thymos processed this suggestion with growing unease. The other delegates would never approve. Direct diplomatic contact. Velton would consider it an admission of failure. "Then do not tell them," Quenlar said simply. "Send someone unofficially. Someone who can speak honestly about our situation without the Council's pride getting in." The way. 3 days later, a small, unremarkable ship left Nexus Prime carrying Special Envoy Quenlar toward human space. The journey took 5 days using the Council's fastest available transportation. Quenlar spent the time reviewing everything known about humanity's new civilization. The data was impressive and intimidating. New Terra had grown from a simple colony world to a thriving capital in just 18 months. The Human Alliance encompassed 47 star systems and was expanding weekly. Their technology was advancing at rates that seemed impossible. Most unsettling of all, they appeared to be genuinely happy. Intelligence reports described efficient governments, prosperous economies, and cooperative relationships between species that had never worked together before. When Quenlar's ship finally entered human space, the difference was immediately obvious. Traffic control was friendly and efficient. Security checks were thorough but respectful. Instead of the rigid protocols that governed Council space, everything flowed with practical ease. New Terra itself was a revelation. The planet hummed with activity, but it was organized activity. Ships from dozens of species moved through orbital traffic patterns that somehow accommodated their different technologies and flight characteristics. The cities below sparkled with a mixture of architectural styles that should have clashed, but instead created something beautiful. Prime Minister Sujin Kong received Quenlar in a garden meeting room that felt more like a peaceful grove than a government office. The human woman was younger than expected, perhaps 50 years old, with intelligent eyes and a calm demeanor that radiated competence. "Welcome to New Terra," Sujin said warmly. "Your message indicated urgent diplomatic business. How can we help you?" Quenlar had rehearsed this moment during the entire journey, but now found the words difficult to speak. "The Council faces multiple crises that we cannot resolve with our current capabilities. We hoped you might consider providing consultation or assistance." Sujin's expression remained neutral. "What kind of assistance?" "Medical expertise for the plague outbreaks, military consultation for the security crises, engineering support for the infrastructure failures." Quenlar paused, then added quietly, "We have discovered that our civilization was more dependent on human innovation than we realized." "I see," Sujin said. "And what does the Council offer in return for this assistance?" The question hit Quenlar like a physical blow. What could the Council offer? Trade agreements with a declining economy, military support from forces that were proving inadequate, scientific cooperation from institutions that were falling behind. "We could consider reversing the membership decision," Quenlar offered weakly. Sujin's smile was kind but firm. "Ambassador, Quenlar, humanity no longer seeks Council membership. We have built something better. Through the meeting room's transparent walls, Quenlar could see the evidence of that claim. The spaceport bustled with activity that dwarfed anything in Council space. Research facilities gleamed with advanced technology. Diplomatic compounds housed representatives from species that had chosen human partnership over Council membership. Then, what would humanity want in exchange for assistance? Quenlar asked. Nothing, Sujin replied. If the Council genuinely needs humanitarian aid, we would provide it freely. But that is not what you are really asking for, is it? Quenlar's leaves rustled with shame. She was right, of course. The Council did not want charity. They wanted their old relationship back, where human innovation solved their problems while they maintained control and authority. What are we really asking for? Quenlar whispered. You want us to save a system that rejected us, Sujin said, gently. You want us to prop up institutions that declared us unworthy. You want us to solve problems that exist because you chose pride over partnership. The silence stretched between them as Quenlar absorbed the truth of those words. Sujin continued, her voice remaining kind but steady. The Council made its position clear 18 months ago. Humanity was too chaotic, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized space. We accepted that judgment and acted accordingly. But surely you understand that we made a mistake, Quenlar pleaded. Of course we understand that, Sujin replied. The question is whether you understand why you made it. Quenlar had no answer for that. Sujin gestured toward the windows overlooking the city. We have built partnerships based on mutual respect and shared growth. Our allies do not fear our potential. They celebrate it. They do not demand we prove our worth. They recognize our contributions. They do not see our differences as threats. They see them as opportunities. The Council could change, Quenlar offered desperately. Could it? Sujin asked. Veltan still leads the Etherian delegation. Mordeth still speaks for the crystalline hegemony. The same beings who voted against humanity still control the Council's decisions. What has actually changed besides your circumstances? It was a devastating question because the answer was nothing. The Council's leadership remained the same. Their attitudes remained the same. Only their situation had changed. We need you, Quenlar admitted finally. Yes, Sujin agreed. You do. But need is not the same as respect. Desperation is not the same as partnership. You do not want to work with humanity. You want humanity to fix your problems. Sujin stood and walked to the window. Let me show you something that might help you understand our perspective. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from a human point of view. Council space appeared as a declining region marked by crisis and stagnation. Human space glowed with growth and prosperity. Around both regions, dozens of independent species were choosing sides. 18 months ago, we wanted to join your club, Sujin said. Today, everyone wants to join ours. Not because we conquered anyone or threatened anyone, but because we offered something better. What did you offer that we could not? Quenlar asked. Freedom to grow, Sujin replied simply. Freedom to change. Freedom to be different without being judged unworthy. Freedom to contribute without having to prove ourselves first. The implications hit Quenlar like a physical force. The Council had not just lost humanity, they had lost the future. While they had maintained rigid traditions and careful hierarchies, humanity had unleashed the potential of dozens of species. Is there no way forward? Quenlar asked. Sujin turned back to face her. There is always a way forward, but it requires fundamental change, not just surface adjustments. The Council would need to abandon its hierarchical structure, its conservative approach to innovation, and its fear of change. It would need to become something entirely different. And if we did that? Then you would no longer be the Galactic Council, Sujin pointed out. You would be something new, something that might be worthy of partnership with the Federation of Free Worlds. Quenlar left New Terra with more questions than answers. The journey back to Nexus Prime felt longer and lonelier than the trip out. She carried with her the painful realization that humanity had not just rejected the Council, they had transcended it. When she arrived back at Council space, the latest crisis reports were waiting. 2 more species had formally requested admission to the Human Alliance. The Zarathi plague had spread to another system. The rebellion in the Helix sector was inspiring independence movements on 6 other worlds. The Council was not just failing, it was becoming irrelevant, and humanity was not coming to save them. 2 years had passed since humanity's quiet departure from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. Speaker Thymos stood in the council chamber looking out at empty seats where proud species had once gathered. The crystal walls seemed dimmer now, reflecting the reduced light of a civilization in decline. Only 7 species remained as active council members. The others had either joined the Human Alliance, declared independence, or simply stopped participating in council affairs. The great galactic government that had ruled for millennia was becoming a historical curiosity. "The monthly reports," announced Secretary Velnara, her voice echoing in the mostly empty chamber. The statistics were worse than even the most pessimistic projections. Council space had lost 40% of its population to emigration. Economic output had dropped by 60%. Scientific advancement had virtually stopped. Military effectiveness was at levels not seen since the ancient wars. Meanwhile, the Human Alliance had grown to encompass 73 star systems and 49 different species. Their technology was advancing so rapidly that Council intelligence could barely track it. Their economy was booming with innovations that seemed to appear weekly. Their military was smaller than the Council's, but had proven devastatingly effective in the few conflicts that had occurred. "The Zarathi have formally requested complete evacuation assistance," reported Medical Coordinator Thex Allah. "Their homeworld is no longer habitable due to the plague. They want to relocate their entire population to human space." Veltan, still clinging to his position despite the failures, shifted uncomfortably. "Surely we can provide adequate medical assistance. We have been treating plagues for thousands of years." "With human help," Thexala replied bluntly. "Without human intuitive medicine, we are back to the slow, careful methods that take years to develop effective treatments. The Zarathi do not have years." The truth was that human doctors had already offered to treat the Zarathi plague. Dr. Sora Park, now head of the Alliance Medical Council, had developed a cure within weeks of being contacted. But the cure required accepting human assistance, which meant leaving Council space. "What about the Helix Sector Rebellion?" asked Military Coordinator Morven. General Morketh's report was equally dismal. 3 more systems have declared independence this month. They are all requesting Alliance protection. Without human tactical expertise, we cannot maintain order in regions that were peaceful for decades under human peacekeeping. The pattern was clear and devastating. Every system that broke away from the Council immediately prospered under Alliance protection. Every problem the Council could not solve was being solved easily by human innovation. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. Economic Coordinator Jin Ra provided the final crushing blow. Alliance GDP has grown 800% in 2 years. Their trade networks now connect more systems than the Council ever did. Species that never worked together are creating unprecedented prosperity through human-facilitated cooperation. Thymos absorbed these reports with growing despair. "Has there been any response to our requests for negotiation?" "President Jae-Hyun-Oh has agreed to address the Council," Jin-Ra replied. "The transmission is scheduled for this afternoon." When the holographic image of the human president appeared in the chamber, the contrast was striking. President Jae-Hyun stood in a room filled with representatives from dozens of species, all working together in obvious harmony. Behind him, windows showed a bustling spaceport, where ships from across the galaxy came and went in peaceful commerce. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, President Jae-hyun began, his voice calm and respectful. Thank you for this opportunity. To address your concerns, Thymos leaned forward eagerly. President Oh, the Council faces unprecedented challenges. We believe that cooperation between our governments could benefit all parties involved. President Jae-hyun nodded thoughtfully. I understand your situation. The Alliance has been monitoring the difficulties in Council space with genuine concern for the welfare of all sentient beings. Then you will consider providing assistance? Veltan asked hopefully. The Alliance provides humanitarian aid wherever it is needed, President Jae-hyun replied. We have already offered medical assistance for the plague outbreaks and refugee support for displaced populations. These offers remain open. But what about broader cooperation? Thymos pressed. Economic partnerships, security agreements, technological exchanges? President Jae-hyun's expression remained patient but firm. The Alliance engages in such partnerships with governments that share our values of mutual respect, voluntary cooperation, and equality among member species. The implication was clear without being insulting. The Council, with its rigid hierarchy and history of exclusion, did not meet those criteria. Fleet Admiral In-soo Kim stepped into view beside the President. We have no interest in conquest or dominance. Our goal is simply to demonstrate that cooperation works better than control. Science Director Nae Young Choi joined them, adding, Alliance research facilities are open to any species that wishes to contribute to the advancement of knowledge. We believe science prospers through diversity of thought, not conformity to established thinking. President Jae-hyun continued. 2 years ago, the Council judged humanity by our past conflicts rather than our potential for growth. You demanded we prove our worthiness, then rejected that proof when we presented it. We have no interest in repeating that dynamic. We made a mistake, Thymos admitted openly. We see that now. Can we not move past it? Of course you can, President Jae-hyun replied. But moving past it requires more than acknowledgement. It requires fundamental change in how you think about diversity, cooperation, and growth. Veltan's blue skin flushed darker with frustration. What exactly do you want from us? Nothing, President Jae-hyun said simply. We want nothing from the Council because we no longer need anything from the Council. We have built something better. The silence that followed was deafening. The few remaining Council delegates absorbed the reality that humanity was not negotiating from weakness or need. They were explaining their position from a stance of overwhelming strength and success. However, President Jae-hyun continued, the Alliance door remains open to any species that wishes to join us as equals. Individual Council members are welcome to apply for Alliance membership. We judge each application based on that species' commitment to our values, not their political history. And the Council as an institution? Asked Quenlar, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. President Jae-hyun considered the question carefully. The Galactic Council represents an old way of thinking about galactic governance. Hierarchical, conservative, based on the idea that some species are more worthy than others. The Alliance represents a new way, collaborative, innovative, based on the idea that diversity makes us stronger. He gestured to the beings around him. We have proven that former enemies can become trusted partners, that different species can work together as equals, and that innovation flourishes when fear is replaced with respect. The choice is yours, President Jae-hyun concluded. You can continue trying to maintain a system that is clearly failing, or you can learn from our example and build something better. But we will not save a system that rejected us simply because that system now faces the consequences of its choices. The transmission ended, leaving the Council chamber in stunned silence. Quenlar was the first to speak. They are not coming back. No. Thymos agreed quietly. They are not. Veltan's proud bearing finally cracked. We destroyed the greatest civilization in galactic history because we were afraid of change. Humanity did not destroy our civilization, Quenlar corrected, gently. They simply stopped holding it together. We destroyed ourselves through fear, pride, and the inability to recognize potential when it stood before us. In the weeks that followed, the exodus from Council space accelerated. The Zarathi became the fifth species to formally join the Alliance, followed quickly by the Aquatic Federation and the Crystal Miners Guild. Each departure weakened the Council further while strengthening the Alliance. 3 months later, Thymos made his final speech as Speaker of the Galactic Council. Only 4 species remained as members, and 2 of them had indicated they were considering Alliance membership applications. The Council hereby suspends formal operations, he announced to the nearly empty chamber. Member species are free to pursue their own futures as they see fit. It was not a dramatic end. There were no final battles, no conquests, no epic confrontations. The Galactic Council simply acknowledged that it had become irrelevant and stepped aside. On New Terra, President Jae-hyun received the news while walking through the memorial garden dedicated to the early human colonists. Ambassador Daeho Kim, now elderly but still sharp, walked beside him. "Do you feel any satisfaction in their collapse?" Daeho asked. President Jae-hyun considered the question seriously. "No. Satisfaction would imply we wanted revenge, we wanted respect. We got something better. The opportunity to build our own future. And now? Now we continue building," President Jae-hyun said simply. "The galaxy is full of species that want to grow, to learn, to cooperate. We help them do that.